Hi everybody! I'm going to be talking about composite functions in this video. I'll start with the definition of composite functions and functions in general. Functions are a way to express the relationship between different variables. It is inherently similar to the equations that we have learned in algebra, such as y equals x plus 1. Essentially, y is the same as fx. However, when you plug a number in for a function such as f of x, the result will present you with more information about both the quantity of x and y. And now I'll present an example of how to solve a common function like this one. So here you have the function that you just saw on the PowerPoint, f of x equals 3x plus 2, and evaluate the equation when x equals 4. So what you want to do first is that you want to plug in 4 for x. So you'd have f of 4 equals 3 times 4 plus 2. And after some simple calculations, you will find that f of 4 is equal to 3 times 4, which is 12, plus 2 is equal to 14. And 14 would be your final answer. A composite function is when one function is put inside of another. For example, f of g of x would be a composite function because it is made up by two independent functions, f of x and g of x. There's also a special symbol for the composite functions that looks like this. Now, don't worry if you see that in a problem because they basically mean the same thing. And now let's do two practice questions to see that if you really got the material. On our first practice question, you have two functions. G of x equals x plus 1 and f of x equals x squared. In this problem, you need to evaluate f of g of x when x equals 3. So I assume that you already paused and did the problem. So here is a full run-through of how to solve number 1 of the practice question. So this is the equation or function that you just saw in the PowerPoint, f of g of x with x being 3. And the two functions f of x and g of x are listed down below. So in order to solve this problem, you have to take two steps. First, you want to evaluate g of x. Now, plugging x for 3, you would have g of 3 would equal to 3 plus 1. And after a simple calculation, g of 3 would be equal to 4. And now here comes the second step, which is to evaluate f of x in terms of g of x. So now you already know that g of x, or g of 3, is 4. So f of 4 would be equal to 4 squared. Now 4 squared, of course, after some simple calculations later, you would find out that 4 squared is actually equal to 16. So 16 here would be your final answer. And now going to number 2. We have the two same functions, f of x and g of x, except for that you have to evaluate the function when the variable is actually x, meaning that x is actually the input. So here you have the second practice question with f of g of x. And now here is the first step to solving this problem. First, we still have to evaluate g of x. And in this case, it's actually easier because g of x would literally equal x plus 1. And now the second step is a little bit more difficult because now you have to evaluate f of x in terms of g of x. So you have to evaluate f of x plus 1 since that is g of x. And now that would equal to x plus 1 squared. And now through some simple trick and calculations, we've realized that x plus 1 squared would actually be equal to 2x squared plus 2x plus 1. And this long formula would be your answer. Well, I hope that you gained a better understanding of composite functions. Thank you for watching.